That's awesome.
Boy.
Let's go. That's your lifer, dude.
Lifer.
You found it. One of the driving forces in the hobby of birding is rarity. People love to find the species that are uncommon in their state, region, or even entire country. With a lot of rare birds being reported in our home state of Wisconsin, we joined our friends Chris and Colette on a quest to see as many rare species as possible. With storms scheduled to hit later in the day, we had 12 hours to see how many we could tally. Our first stop was to try and find a species that is actually one of the rarest breeding birds in the entire country.
So we are on our way to a spot where we are hoping to get some Kirtland's warblers. So Kirtland's warblers are one of the, in my opinion, coolest birds in the state because of their rarity. They were in severe decline and they started coming back because of some of the forest management, so it's a really cool species. Then the rest of the day we're going to try and find some other rare birds, and hopefully we have a really good birding day.
We were driving the dirt roads to get to our destination when we heard a bird that isn't supposed to be in the state.
We just found a prairie warbler. We were driving down the road and we heard it all of a sudden. And there it is. So it's out there somewhere. We're going to see if we can get a look at it, but that's a really rare bird for the state.
We triangulated the area where the song was coming from, but had trouble locating the source.
It's tough because we hear it really clearly, but it is just not wanting to, northern flicker, it is just not wanting to show itself. So it's back there somewhere, we can hear it, but we can't see it. And for such a bright yellow bird, you'd think it'd be easy to see that it can actually hide very well.
Eventually, we were able to spot the prairie warbler up in a tree, confirming the visual on our first rare bird of the day.
That was fantastic. We believe there's two of them because we hear one over here and then one more this way. It did pop up and give us some views, which is great because sometimes they can be really hard to see. So let's see if we can go find some Kirtland's warblers now that we got this surprise prairie warbler.
What made this bird special for us was that, to our knowledge, we were the first to locate it, meaning this rarity was a major surprise to start the day with.
Surprise bird.
That was awesome. That was awesome.
You didn't even think it was coming, did you?
That's not on my wish list for today.
Next, we made our way to the spot where we hoped to find a species that was once at serious risk of becoming extinct, the Kirtland's warbler.
We are at the spot where we are going to listen for some Kirtland's warblers, and if we're really lucky, we're going to see some sitting up. It's kind of the luck of the draw if you can actually get eyes on one or not, because some of these pines here are pretty thick. But the Kirtland's warblers are rare in part because they like a very specific habitat to nest. They're ground nesters too, so that makes them a little vulnerable to predators compared to other species, but they like pines around 10 to 13 feet, so if the pines grow too big, they are not going to want to nest in that habitat. So that's the kind of habitat we look for, and we're going to see if we can actually get a Kirtland's warbler here.
It took no time at all to get confirmation that the Kirtland's warblers were indeed in the area.
We did hear a Kirtland's warbler. They have a super distinctive song, so if you know it, it stands out really well. Gonna try to get a view though, because we've only heard it, haven't seen it yet.
We walked the road, waiting for one of these birds to come close enough to give us a look. While we searched, we found many vesper sparrows, including one that came out into the open, gray catbirds, and other species calling the jack pines home. Suddenly, a Kirtland's warbler popped up on one of the trees and sang, giving us a better experience than we could have hoped for.
We've had a great experience here. The first bird that we got really good looks at that was cool in my opinion was the vesper sparrow, and we actually got to see it singing sitting up, and then it was just kind of chewing on some stuff that was on this little trail that they have out here. And then the Kirtland's warbler, we were hearing them from a distance, and then eventually one of them popped up for a second really close up to us. So we got a really good experience with the Kirtland's warbler. I think a lot of times when they were singing, they were just in the center of the tree, so you couldn't see them sitting at the tops. But then sometimes you get lucky and they pop out, and that's when you'll see them the most. A really cool species, and I would say one of Wisconsin's signature species that only breeds in one other state. Shout out to you, Michigan.
Kirtland's is always an awesome bird to see. We also had some brown thrashers singing, clay-colored sparrows, and seeing the vesper was definitely a highlight because that's one that it kind of is very habitat specific, so you have to be in the right place. And when I see them, they kind of look like they don't have a big defining feature. Sometimes you'll see like an eye ring, but it kind of is one of the more variable looking sparrows here in the States. That's a good pickup. Prairie and Kirtland's, two great warblers for the day.
Finding two rare birds right off the bat to start the day, we moved on to our next location to try and find a duck that typically doesn't make it to this part of the country.
So we've been pretty successful so far, and our next stop is to look for some cinnamon teal that have been reported in a specific marshy area. So it's thick in there, so hopefully they're by the edge. And last time we did this, we actually saw these birds last year. They were really skittish, so this will probably just be car birding, but that would be our second big target for the day, so hopefully we can get it.
The marsh where the teal had been reported was small, but housed a lot of different bird species, including trumpeter swans and gadwall. It was also incredibly thick with cattails, so if the teal wasn't out in the open, we had no hope of seeing it. Shockingly, as we drove the road, we noticed our target bird sitting right out in the open.
I can't believe that thing is sitting right there. It has all this space to go, and it chooses to just be right in front by the road. It's so funny. 2 years in a row, cinnamon teal, same place.
We watched the teal for a while, just hanging out along the side of the road. Eventually, it retreated back into the marsh, leaving us feeling excited about adding another rare bird to our list for the day.
We just had an awesome time watching the cinnamon teal. It was pretty chill. Eventually it flew off into the marsh. And what's tough is if it was in that area to begin with, we never would have seen it because it's so thick. So we got kind of lucky that it was hanging out on the edge, but what a beautiful bird to see.
Next, we moved on to the open countryside near the city of Fond du Lac, where it just so happened that several rarities had been reported the day prior.
What we're doing right now is we're just cruising around some country roads. There are some flooded fields that have had some really good birds reported. So Hudsonian godwit is one we want to see. Baird sandpiper somebody had. So hopefully we can pick up a few more species quickly, but I think these are going to be some pretty distant views.
There's tons of stuff being reported in slightly different places, like really cool things like snowy egret. There's the Hudsonian godwit somewhere, Franklin's gull, Wimbrels, so we don't really know exactly where to go. So we're trying to look for things that are close and then work our way out. So we got a tip on a snowy egret over here, so we're gonna try to get that right away and then go from there.
With so much out there to see, it was hard to know what to go for first. We stopped by a flooded field where a Hudsonian godwit had been reported, but didn't have any luck picking it out. After that, we stopped by a different flooded field, where we noticed an egret flying in that was smaller than the nearby great egrets.
We got him. Added to the rarity list for the day.
We got out of the car and took some time to watch the snowy egret, which actually came fairly close to the road.
How's that make you feel, Chris?
That was great.
You pumped about this?
This is pretty sweet. There's a lot of good stuff we can pick up in this area, so if we can hit on all these targets, we'll be looking good on the rare bird total.
We moved back to the road where we missed the Hudsonian godwit the first time around. This time, Derek spotted it at a great distance away, foraging in a puddle.
What a spot.
Got the godwit way out in the mud. I think it was definitely worth taking another check. It's the kind of thing where you feel like it has to be here, so it's worth giving it that extra look, and it paid off for us today.
The Hudsonian godwit was already the fourth rare bird of the day, but there was still so much more to see.
We are feeling good right now. We basically hit on every rarity we've searched for, I think, so
Yeah, really.
we got good momentum. The morale is high, so let's keep it rolling.
The morale is so high.
So high.
We traveled a few minutes away to another road with another flooded field, and picked up a Franklin's gull, as well as two birds that weren't technically rare, but were still very cool to see, a black-bellied plover and two western cattle egrets.
What's going on out here today?
It's just
We get
crazy.
lucky.
We get lucky.
This is like the best day we've had.
This is
Best
the best
day.
day.
Best day.
Things are really firing on all cylinders right now. We ran into a lot of people looking for different birds out here actually, including our friend Alex, and he told us that he got on the Franklin's gull, and when we got there he pointed it out to us right away, so we picked that one up. Then there was a black-bellied plover across the street, and then just two cattle egrets kind of showed up out of nowhere, and so we picked up all those birds within the span of like 5 minutes. So now we're going to shoot for an area that has wimbrels and redneck phalaropes there, and I can't imagine the wimbrels are going to be staying around very long because they seem like they move out pretty quick, but it would be great to get those two species too because those are definitely both rarities for the state. When we arrived at the point where the wimbrels and redneck phalarope were reported, we noticed just how much habitat there was to search through, with a massive amount of water in the fields. The wimbrels were nowhere to be found, but the redneck phalaropes were still there, giving us another tick on the rare bird stat sheet.
A couple of beautiful red-necked phalaropes out here. Wilson's phalarope is the more common one. So I feel like I always appreciate when you get to see some rednecks. And something cool about phalaropes is that the females are actually brighter than the males. So most birds it's the opposite. With phalaropes, females are the brighter ones.
With the rain on its way, we headed to the shores of Lake Michigan to try and find a bird that would actually be a life bird for Derek, hoping to cap our day with one more rare find.
We're now in Sheboygan and we're going to stop at the beach to look for a little gull, which is actually kind of a nemesis bird for me. Tried a couple times for it, including one time in Indiana. Haven't seen it, so hopefully we can get it today.
When we arrived at the beach where the gull was being seen, we realized just how difficult it would be to track down.
This is pretty tough. There's a lot of birds out here, and weirdly they're like shrouded in mist or dust. Like it just seems to be hovering where the birds are. It's very odd, but it makes it a lot more difficult to kind of pick through them, and we have a lot of birds to sift through, so we're going to probably be looking for a while for this little gull.
Aside from the monumental task of trying to pick one bird out of a sea of hundreds, other things were also giving us problems.
Well, we have a bunch of things working against us right now. There's a guy walking his dogs, and he scared all the gulls, so we'd been picking through them, then they all kind of redistributed, and then there's the like foggy, grainy stuff over them. And then also this huge, massive storm front is coming. So we're trying to pick out this gull as quick as possible. It is very difficult. So I'm about to scan this spot that has a lot of terns. And this should be like about tern size. So I'm hoping it's hanging out with them.
In this large group of birds were common and Caspian terns, and a variety of gulls, including more uncommon species such as lesser black-backed and two more Franklin's gulls. While we tried to pick out the little gull in this big group, Colette checked the north side of the beach and called us over when she noticed something that looked different. When we went over to the gull group that was on the shoreline, Derek picked out our target bird. It's the smallest thing out there for sure.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Boy.
Let's go. That's your lifer, dude.
Lifer.
You found it.
Congratulations! Congratulations!
That was a lot of work. Yeah, you spotted it.
Today is
We were all
Derek's
like
day.
arguing about like, oh, look at that one over there, and you're just like,
definitely
hey, there it is.
We need to work on that impression.
We watched the little gull for a while as the storms were bearing down on us. We moved to slightly higher ground to try and get a better look, feeling excited all the while. It's Mr. Lifer Man!
Lifer little gull. Feels good. Feels good. It was a lot of work. 2 states searched for this thing. Finally got it at home.
Eventually, the storm clouds arrived, and it was time to go.
It's gonna pour here. We tried to get some better looks, but unfortunately, so we saw the gull, then we were waiting for Chris to get his camera because he had it in the car, and then by the time he came back, they had taken off. We weren't able to relocate it, but we got some good looks, and it is gonna storm on us, so I think we're gonna go in the car for now.
With rain pouring, our 12-hour rarity chase was officially over.
Getting rained on, but got a little gull. Was it worth it?
Oh yeah, absolutely worth it. It's always worth it when you can get a rare bird, even if you get absolutely dumped on. We concluded the day with 8 rare bird species, an impressive effort for 12 hours. These days are always extremely fun, especially when everything seems to be going according to plan. Certainly doing research prior to going out and luck both play a massive role in finding rare species.
Hopefully we will have more days like this in the future. But until then, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Badgerland Birding.